The P.1000 Landkreuzer, or Rat, was it a stupid idea? I recently came across a DeviantArt cutaway image of the Landkreuzer that was very nicely done and had a whole bunch of link. Um, but I started reading the comment thread, which never supposed to do on anything we know, but I did, and there seemed to be two. Um, In general, there seems to be two clubs involving German tanks, especially prototypes and stuff. One is that everything from the Tiger to the spoons that the German infantry used was superior, and etc. Um, and the other club is no, German superiority is a complete myth. They had no advantage in any such way, and any advantage that they might have had was definitely completely negated by other disadvantages, mechanical breakdown, speed, etc. And this seems to be very evident on the commentary on this rat. If you're watching this, you probably already know what the rat is. It was a land ship or a super ultra heavy tank, whatever you want to call it. Basically, a very large hull with a naval turret from, I think, the Bismarck type battleship mounted on top with a bunch of other things mounted on it, from like mouse turrets to the Whirlwind turrets, um, which I'll talk about a little bit later. Um, but yeah, so one of the first comments on this page was just shows how crazy Hitler was. Well, the first problem with that was it wasn't Hitler's idea, uh, the rat. He did prove it briefly, I think, but the idea was actually, according to everything that I've read, from Krupp director Grote. I haven't found his first name. So Krupp director Grote thought, hey, we should make this thing. And so it got into the drawing boards and so forth. Well, okay. Just shows how crazy the people he was talking with were. To have such a ridiculous idea. Grote came up with that idea in response to a board meeting, some meeting on that was organized in response to Russian heavy tanks, KV2 and such. And in fact, the Russians had, I don't remember what it's called, but they already had what I believe are called land ships. It looked like a long hull with multiple different turrets. It looked like a boat that went across the land, had treads and stuff. Not anywhere near the size of the Rat, but it was a land ship. So the concept was already around. It wasn't Hitler's idea, it wasn't Grote's idea, it wasn't even a German idea. The land ship or heavy tanks, really. Um, if you think about it, the German Blitzkrieg was speed Panzer threes, Panzer twos, and Panzer fours, all not considered slow or immobile by any means. Sorry. Um, so yeah, it wasn't Hitler's idea, and it wasn't that the concept of a land ship wasn't completely crazy, evidenced by the fact that there already were land ships. So, but it it was that most of the arguments go along the lines of it was completely impractical because airstrikes. It would have been the target for every Lancaster or fighter bomber or whatever is in the European theater. And a friend and I of mine and I sort of thought, is that such a bad thing? Uh, if you have something in your territory, and for most of the war, Germany was on the defensive. I think the Rat went onto the drawing board in 1941 or 42, fairly early. Um, if you're on the defensive and you, for some reason, know that all of the enemy aircraft, which are a nuisance, are coming towards this one point, this one spot, the Land Cruiser, you can do something about it. Firstly, as has been showed in various images, diagrams, and so forth, most depictions of the Rat have four Wirbelwind turrets, like quad 20 millimeter autocannons on the back of it, and other who knows how much other stuff. So it's by no means defenseless against aircraft like most tanks were, comparatively, not counting the machine guns they mounted on the Tiger E and stuff. Anyway, so it's not defenseless against aircraft, but there's another reason why to put it simply, the Land Cruiser would have worked, if it existed, would have worked in conjunction with an entire German army division, what have you. So if there's an airstrike against it, the anti-aircraft defending it is not going to be just what's mounted on it itself. This is on the land, with presumably supported by a German army. Um, I don't think, despite what happened with the Bismarck, I don't think that if the Germans had a land ship that they would have just sent it off by itself to go invade a country or something. Uh, I believe it would have worked in conjunction with other armies and been supported by them. Uh, so an airstrike against the Land Cruiser isn't just an airstrike against the Land Cruiser, it's against the Land Cruiser and the contingents of armed forces surrounding it, supporting it, protecting it. As someone did point out in the comments thread, the Land Cruiser has a naval turret on it. It's effectively artillery. It's probably not going to be very good at targeting and destroying advancing tanks, unless maybe they were really tightly grouped an armor column or something. It's basically artillery, very big artillery that is not limited to um, water, the sea. Um, so airstrikes, yeah, but it's defended. There's lots of anti-aircraft defenses, presumably on it and supporting it. Secondly, let's say that's not enough. It kind of wasn't if you look at, like, in the long run, the Allied bombing raids. Um, but the difference, and that's where I think most of this is coming from. Well, the Allies had, all these bombing raids that were pretty successful, um, but when the Allies were raiding, the Germans didn't presumably know exactly where they were going. Eventually, they had to mean, "Oh, okay, bombers that way. We should send up Messerschmitts and things to intercept them. The interceptor planes. I think starting with the Me-410s. But if you know exactly where the enemy aircraft are coming from, you can much more reliably intercept them. Now they're not going for, are they going for this city, this city, this city, this target, we have to defend them all, or that's a lot harder than the enemy are coming to attack our land cruiser. Let's have a couple of fighters going around patrol, or just when we see airplanes and we get the radio beep 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 beep, there's a bomber formation coming, send up the planes. We know exactly where they're heading. And as far as I understand it, especially early in the war, before the B-17s and so forth had um, large fighter escorts, the Germans were pretty successful at intercepting bombing formations and so forth. Um, so, yeah, anti-aircraft on the ground supporting the Land Cruiser, and interceptors could readily intercept aircraft formations coming to attack this Land Cruiser. So, is it a terrible idea because it could have been taken out by aircraft easily, large target, and everything? I don't think it's that quite simple. Also, in terms of a final point with the aircraft scenario, if let's say that the Allied aircraft strike does destroy the Land Cruiser, because of the previously stated reasons, I'm going to assume that that was at a heavy cost. Ground attack, interceptors, and everything, but some hero manage, or a formation of heroes managed to get through the defenses and take out the mighty Land Cruiser at great cost. Well, presumably the Allies, just having done so, lost a lot of planes in the attempt. In the attempt. Um, those planes have now been deposited on German soil. They might be repairable, but they're certainly not going to be in operation for the Allies anytime soon. And the Germans lose the Land Cruiser, the Allies lose a bunch of planes. Now, you could argue, and depending upon the scenario, how many planes did it take out? There could be an uneven or even trade there. But the point is, they did not just bomb Dresden or the Krupp factories or the Porsche factories or the things that are supplying the German military. So that's good. The that's the big thing that crippled Germany. The mouse production halted because the factory was blown up and everything. It was the bombings of the factories and the cities that really deteriorated the German economic and production capacity. And if the Allies spent that effort to take out a big tank, the Germans lost more. Again, the Bismarck. That'll lead into the next point. I've read that making the Land Cruiser is inconceivable. The resources and the cost and the time and okay. What about the Bismarck and the Tirpitz? It's a sister ship or something like that. A ship, another ship very similar to the Bismarck. What about the resources, fuel, and time and everything that went into those? I think the Bismarck started production in 1939 and launched in 1941 or something. I don't know. Fairly early in the war. And the Bismarck was huge, way larger than this Land Cruiser thing. One of the Bismarck turrets took up like half of this Land Cruiser thing. The Bismarck had 4 turrets, I think. Um, and they might have had three. I believe they had 3 cannons each. The turret that was supposed to go on the Land Cruiser, I think, was modified. So, in terms of resources and fuel, I think, not being an engineer or something, that there would have been at least the same amount, if not more, going into the Bismarck and the Tirpitz. Um, would it have been possible to build the Land Cruiser? This is just my opinion, the conjecture, but I think so. It's. I think they would have figured it out. It's modern. We have modern land vehicles that are larger than it today. It is possible. They did have blueprints, and they were better than other nations at the time of making heavy land vehicles. Say what you will about the mouse, but it was functional. It worked. They figured out how suspension and all that sort of thing. They made it work. And I think it's within reason that they could have upscaled the same techniques and technology that they were using to create the Land Cruiser if they had wanted to. So, was it possible? I think so. Feel free to disagree. Um, was it a stupid idea because it would have been taken out by aircraft strikes immediately? I don't think so. Caveat, it might have been worth it. If What was it a stupid idea because it was just Hitler's fantasy? It wasn't Hitler's idea. It wasn't Grote's. The concept wasn't Grote's idea. Um, so was it? Lastly, I think, was it a stupid idea because of tactical usage? Many people will say about this and the mouse tank that it had no tactical use whatsoever. It would have been too slow, couldn't take out tanks, etc., etc., etc. And this is where I feel it gets a bit more tricky, and I think it's sort of the heart of the issue. Let's say you build the Land Cruiser. Let's say Germany builds the Land Cruiser at roughly the time that it was blueprinted. What do you do with it? Well, we have Germany's enemies at the time, France. Well, the Land Cruiser would have been great at smashing through the Maginot Line. The Germans decided to smash through Belgium, and so it's sort of irrelevant. Um, Britain, I don't know the range of the off the top of my head of the Bismarck turret. Maybe it could have shot across the English Channel, but Germany was making other things to do that, which were I don't know how successful. You know, everyone knows about the Gustav railway cannon, so that's sort of already covered, whether it works or not. Um, Russia, the Land Cruiser could have gone up the the road, the Bahn. I forgot what Autocarius calls it. Anyway, they could have drove it right up to Moscow and broken through all of the Russian defenses. Yeah, or they could have equipped the German troops with coats and stuff. um, if anything, it might have had some application in dealing with Russia. However, there would have been, I believe that there would have been much more practical ways of winning in or succeeding in Operation Barbarossa, um, or at Kursk for that matter. Um, but maybe. So if it's, but that's a big if. Um, so I guess the point that I'm trying to get at is that the Land Cruiser, I don't believe, was a stupid idea in the concept of itself. I believe, given the situation, strategically and sort of tactically, that Germany was in through most of the war, that the Land Cruiser would not have really helped in. It wasn't bad, but it was sort of overkill for anything that it might be good at in the situation. There were much more simpler and reasonable ways to achieve any of the goals that they had. That I think that's about it. Um, a long-winded rant about the P.1000 Landkreuzer. Yeah, I don't think it was a stupid idea. I don't think it made strategic sense, which is probably why it wasn't made. So I hope that made sense. If Thank you for watching the video. If you liked it, good. I don't know if I'll be making more like this, or might make a couple. I don't know if I'm going to be a YouTuber, as they say, but it seemed like something that would be fun to talk about, and there hasn't been much YouTube discussion that I've seen, but I haven't really looked. So, thanks for watching. Bye.